Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the webinar, Lost in Translation, Helping Students Translate College Experience into Professional Skills Employers Value. I'm your host, Kathy McDonald, Assistant Director of Network Partnerships with the Florida College Access Network. I'm thrilled to welcome on our call today guest speaker Lynn Chisholm, the Director for Internships and Career Readiness and Career Services, a division of Student Affairs and Student Success at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Lynn is responsible for developing and managing career-focused experiential learning opportunities and career readiness programming to promote student career skill development and workplace success. Lynn has been in higher education for 15 years and also worked in workforce and organizational development for 12 years. She earned her master's degree at Boston University and her bachelor's degree at University of Central Florida. Before we get started with today's presentation, a few housekeeping items. First, we welcome your questions. This is all about learning together, so please submit your questions in the chat box, which you should see on the right side of your screen if you're viewing from your desktop computer. We will allot time at the end of today's call for a guest presenter to answer questions, but you can submit them at any time. Second, please share what you are learning on your favorite social media platform at Florida College Access, hashtag FCAN, hashtag career badging or career readiness badging, and at USF Career Serve. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. All materials will be available within a week of the recording, though you can find handouts now with this webinar that gives you the executive summary from USF's program, some information from NACCE about college readiness, and then finally the slides to this webinar. I know quite a few of the listeners today may be new to FCAN's work. To give you a little bit of background of who we are, FCAN's mission is to create and strengthen a statewide network that catalyzes and supports communities to improve college and career readiness, access, and completion for all students. Our vision is to see that at least 60% of working-age Floridians will hold a high-quality post-secondary degree or credential by the year 2025. We accomplish our work in three primary ways. First, we support the formation and growth of local college access networks, which are multi-sector strategic alliances collaborating to ensure more students succeed in preparing for tomorrow's jobs. The majority of jobs in the next decade will require education beyond high school, and LCANs help students by fostering partnerships between education institutions and community organizations, business leaders, government, and philanthropy. 78.3% of the state is now supported by an LCAN, a multi-sector approach to college and career readiness. Second, FCAN supports the work of student success through our research, data, and policy work. We produce student-centered research and policy analysis. We act as a clearinghouse for college and career readiness, access, and completion data, and we develop local, state, and national partnerships and policy alignment around degree attainment. Finally, we support our students through statewide initiatives under the College Ready Florida umbrella. We now have 300 schools, or nearly 300 schools throughout the state, participating in at least one of our statewide initiatives to help students get into college and afford the education beyond high school that supports their goals. This includes, in the fall, Apply Yourself Florida, the Florida FAFSA Challenge, which is the season we're in right now, and finally Florida College Decision Day, which takes place in the spring. Now, to set the stage for today's topic, many in the college and career readiness space hear a common refrain from employers. Graduates don't have the, quote, soft skills employers are looking for when hiring new talent. What skills specifically are they looking for? The National Association of Colleges and Employers does a survey each year. A similar set of skills tops the list. Their Job Outlook report produced in 2017 found these top 10 skills. The ability to work in a team came out number 1, problem-solving skills, communication skills in written form, strong work ethic, and communication skills in verbal form were the top 5. Following those is leadership, initiative, analytical and quantitative skills, and flexibility, adaptability, followed by detailed orientation. This leaves education institutions scratching their head as they see these skills students are building and mastering in their coursework and in their extracurricular activities every day. Something is getting lost in translation. It's clear students are struggling to translate what they're learning into ways employers can see they've demonstrated competence. That's why I'm so excited to have Lynn with us today to share the innovative approach USF's Career Services has taken to help students make the translation. And with that, let me turn the floor over to Lynn. Welcome, Lynn.
Hi, Kathy. It's great to be here with you and with those who've tuned in to the webinar today. Just because I'll keep referring to this, I'm going to shorten the name of the National Association of Colleges and Employers to NACE. So you'll hear me refer to NACE a couple of times over. And the list of skill sets that we just looked at have been clustered under career readiness competencies, and those are the competencies you see on the screen here, and they are the foundation of our career readiness badging program. So that's a nice reference point for us to get started with. And as we began talking about this and that issue that you were saying employers and universities are scratching their head over, we thought that we really needed to get a better idea of exactly what this problem might consist of, and is it really a skills gap, or is it something a little bit different? So we have some people who are experts in this sort of thing, and we tuned into recruitment trends, which is provided through the Collegiate Employment Research Institute at Michigan State University. Excuse me. And what they have shared is that it sometimes depends on the industry as far as which of those competencies is the priority. They also identified that there's an additional struggle beyond skills that may relate to some of the recruitment challenges employers have. And that could be the location of the company, the pay, or the competitiveness of it, or other aspects unrelated to skills. Additionally, through the consortium of Florida Metropolitan Research Universities, we held an employer summit this past fall, and we talked to our employers throughout the mid-Florida region, and they told us, you know, they think students are learning what they need to learn in college. They are smart, and they feel like more students than ever are doing internships, so they're building skills. But what they see happening more often is that the students don't know how to connect those things. They don't know how to put them together. They don't know how to tell their story, and they don't know how to wrap them around those key NACE career readiness competencies that we started this conversation with. So they're having trouble putting that story into words. And that's where we come up with the term lost in translation. So students themselves feel pretty prepared as they enter the job market. 87%, in fact, feel like they're ready. However, in comparison, 50% of the managers who may be hiring them think that they're ready. So we recently were talking to a group of students, and one very sharp, very articulate engineering student said that he learned that he needed to learn how to talk to employers when he didn't get the internship that he had interviewed for twice. And so he was encouraging his fellow students to take this seriously. And he felt like beyond just helping students get there, his other advice to us was don't sugarcoat it. We need to know what we need to do in order to help ourselves communicate about our skills and our education to get those internships and jobs. So it's not as much a skills gap, we think, as it is perhaps a communication and a generation gap. So this perception sort of fuels this whole skills gap discussion, but we're looking at it a little bit differently. So what we think our students need is to learn the vocabulary of the workforce. So we put together a framework that helps our students to translate their experience and their education through a whole campus approach. We're not owning or managing the content, we're letting the campus own that for our students, and we're preparing our students to pull that together through this framework so that they can present their skills within the context of those NACE career readiness competencies in order to be able to respond to interview questions and present their own unique story to employers. So I really kind of like this graphic because it shows how we're really striving to help our students connect the dots. We want them to connect the dots between their learning, whether that's classroom or outside of the classroom, through experiences, whether they're small ones like projects or big ones like internships, and to reflect in a thoughtful way about those things and how they bundle together through the lens of those NACE career readiness competencies in order to help that student to tell their story and prepare to enter the workforce. Okay, so again, the NACE framework was essential for us. We decided not to reinvent that wheel. There was lots of research that went into this information, and it's updated every year. Every year, employers are surveyed across the country and across industries. So we feel pretty confident in the information that NACE is sharing with us regarding what employers are looking for. And it's helping us to build that vocabulary, that workforce lexicon to help our students learn how to talk about what they're learning. And using that standard helps us to have credibility when we're working with our faculty and helping them learn how to connect their course student learning objectives and professional standards with the NACE competencies. Okay, so in a nutshell, our solution was to build this framework through our learning management system online so that students can work their way through that framework using their own coursework, their own experience, and conducting some thoughtful, critical reflection around those competencies to better understand how they've gained those skill sets and how they could put those skill sets to use for an employer. So again, it's our solution, but it's their choice. And it gives them the opportunity to create whatever combination they want to based on their own unique journey and based on how they want to present themselves to the workforce, to an employer. So some of you may be familiar with the T-shaped student diagram. Part of our program enables students to maximize the skills they're building in a focus area. So that's the stem of the T, the depth part of their learning. And the other part of it helps them to build skills across areas that may not be as central to their program of study. So giving them greater breadth in terms of their skill sets and competencies. So by broadening their education and ability, they're able to use employer language, again, through that NACE framework in order to better market themselves and to talk about their skills and show their value to an employer. Okay, so as we start talking about how we actually launched our program, it's important to share that this is really a campus-wide effort. On the left side of your screen, you're going to see folks who are involved internally within our office as part of our Career Readiness Badging Program Committee. And these folks are also champions within our program. They help us in many ways to execute the program, manage the program, oversee student work in the program. So they're key parts of how we keep this thing running. On the right side of your screen, these are our launch partners and our program ambassadors. These are content owners and experience owners, and these are the people who provide the stuff that students learn about and do in order to pursue completion of the competency modules and to earn the badges. So it really is a partnership that extends across our campus and isn't owned by any one individual. I'm just the person talking about it today, but there are many hands that help keep this going on a daily basis. Alrighty, so when we got started, we began with the student pipeline. We went directly to students, starting with student government, And we said, you know, we built this thing for you all, and we're thinking this is a good thing for you. We think this is going to help you to really package yourself before you enter the workforce, and we'd like to know your thoughts. And we got such an enthusiastic response from all of the student groups that we got in front of as we were taking this forward as a pilot. They were excited about it. They could understand it. They saw how it helped them to not only prepare themselves better, but just to package their skill sets so that they were more confident about talking to employers. The other key to this was that we were connecting this program with them in a just-in-time manner. We are not trying to put this in front of first-time on-campus students. So this isn't something we show up to talk about with freshmen. They've got other things on their mind. So we target our second years, our sophomores, our transfer students, our student leaders, our interns, and students who are engaged in experiential learning who want to learn how to connect that to their curriculum. So our modules are broken down into 3 parts to sort of build students up in terms of kind of building that competency and skill set. And it starts with the Learn It module. And in the Learn It module, we conduct a knowledge check. Do they understand that career readiness competency definition as NACE and employers have defined it? And can they connect that to what they've learned on campus through their curriculum, co-curricular activities, or any other forms of training and education that might have supported their ability to learn about that competency. Secondly, once we've checked that they understand what it means, we look at how they may have applied it. And that how piece can happen in lots of different forms as well. We have so many different ways that our students can build experience. It could be research, it could be service learning, it could be student organizations where they have a leadership role, and again, could be things like internship or education abroad. And the final piece of their work to put together their story, this is really the why. So why we are doing this at all is to help them prepare themselves to talk about what they understand, what they know, and what they've done with an employer. So that's the big payoff for them. And as they complete the Learn It and Do It and prepare to finish the Show It component, we provide them with the STAR-L framework for responding to behavioral interview questions. And for those who may not be familiar with that, that situation, task, actions, results, and learning. And we provide them with that framework, and we give them examples, and then we ask them to upload their video response to the video question that they received about that competency. So the competency might ask them about how they've used teamwork within a problem-solving situation, and they'll upload their video, and they'll talk about most likely something they wrote about in the Do It component as they respond to that question about how they've used teamwork and how they could use teamwork to benefit an employer. So that's kind of the exciting part of our program, that we really sort of like how that builds the student up to that point at which they can be confident and comfortable talking to an employer about their skills. Okay, so in addition to getting in front of our students with this opportunity, we're also working with faculty and departments. We're helping them to infuse the program into major program milestone courses. So it could be an intro course where a student begins their journey into a particular profession. It could be a midpoint where they're learning more about professions in that field, or it could be a capstone course where they're really packaging their career management skills to prepare to enter the job search process. So what our faculty like about this is we give them the freedom to personalize this based on their major program of study. So for example, our engineering faculty, our electrical engineering faculty are building out the technology competency to better reflect the skill sets of electrical engineering students. So it won't look the same as perhaps a student who went through a mass comm program, who learned about Photoshop or other technical skill sets applicable to mass communications and electrical engineering. It'll very much represent the skill sets needed in that workforce and market. Okay, also another important group, I think we highlighted a little bit earlier, were our campus experience providers. So it's important for us to help our students understand how they use the activities that we invite them to engage in, whether it's on campus, whether it's off campus, and to see the value of that activity as it helps them build their career competency skills. So we also have close partnerships with many of those groups across campus, and they share this opportunity with their students so that it adds value to the experience their students are gaining. Okay, and another critical component to this is the critical reflection activity that students participate in as part of our framework. So how this helps our students is that they really, through this process, begin to kind of get the connection between those different activities to see how they've built skill sets around a specific competency, and to learn how to apply that workforce vocabulary to the things that they've studied and done. So it sets them up in a process of doing some self-assessment and reflection, which then prepares them to be more successful as they continue their career and professional development beyond our campus. All right, so throughout this process, we're also keeping an eye on their progress, and we do that several different ways. Initially, the students do a self-assessment pre-test to kind of identify where they think they are at that starting point in terms of their own competency development. And then we track them as they complete their do it and show it assessments. Our learn it assessment within the system is self-graded, so it enables the student to go back and try again with some content prompts. We don't give them the answer, we give them information that helps them build that understanding that they may have not had fully developed when they took the quiz, but don't tell them it's a quiz because we don't call it a quiz. And then we are able to also keep an eye on their development as they go through do it and show it, to see their work, to see how they're progressing, to coach them if they need help, to invite them into our office if they need practice with us, to offer them resources and support. So although they're working through this framework independently, they're not doing it alone. We're right there behind them, kind of making sure that they're headed in the right direction. And the last piece is that at the end of the series, they're able to conduct a final self-assessment that hopefully will tell us that they perceive that they've made fantastic progress in their own professional and personal development through the series. Okay, so why we structured it the way we did and why we included badges as part of this program. Well, for our students, it really resonated with them. It provided us with the ability to gamify the program, and they love earning those badges. They really cannot wait to get our feedback on their work to know if they're earning the badge or not. So it's very motivating for them. It also enabled us to chunk the work within that framework so that we weren't asking too much of them at any given time. And the idea is that they've already done this stuff that they're going to use when they work through the competency modules. So while sometimes the opportunity to do this coincides with an experiential learning opportunity like an internship, most of what they're applying to the process, they may have already completed. Okay, and the micro-credentials are a trend that's starting to emerge. The nice thing about it is that the way it is set up in our system, it's verifiable. So a student can't say, hey, I earned the leadership badge, here, copy mine to your LinkedIn page, and then now you'll have it too, because an employer can click on it and it will verify who earned it and that it was given to that the person displaying that badge through USF and not, from their buddy down the street. Okay. and it's portable. One of the things that we encourage our students to do once they earn that badge is to move it into a social media context such as LinkedIn, and to be able to share it with employers as they prepare to leave campus. Okay, so our program's pretty young. We really just launched it in October, although we spent some time building up to it from the beginning of fall semester through, getting in front of students and connecting with faculty and our student affairs and student success partners. But at this point, we already have about 300 students engaged in the site, which we're excited about since, again, it was just a few months ago. And we've had 72 badges earned within that site. One of our launch partners is the library, and they have provided a series of their own, helping students to build technology skills. And they've also had very nice success. I'm transposing numbers. 73 students have earned technology badges through the library site. So we're excited about that, the early evidence of success. All right, so in summary, it's a framework that provides a value add to our students' degree. We're a campus that's committed to student success, and that student success includes enabling them to finish their degree in the shortest amount of time and to be able to use that degree to get meaningful employment at a satisfactory salary level. So we feel like this adds value to the things that they're already working on and gets them better prepared to achieve those outcomes. It also allows students to do things their way. We're a very diverse campus. We've got campuses in St. Pete and in Sarasota, Manatee as well. We have a lot of online students who may never actually step foot on campus. We have a large number of students who transfer to our campus from other institutions. So we needed to be able to respond to the diversity of our student body and allow them to package their own education and experience their own way. So we're big. We're 47,000 plus students. We're the size of a small city. So it really does take a village to help us support this. But the exciting thing is that because there's shared ownership of the program across campus and it's been embraced so widely, it has not been a challenge for us to gain that support across our campus. Okay, and so what do we hear from our customers and our stakeholders? We were very excited to have the opportunity to hear this kind of feedback from these different constituents. Students have told us things like that they feel their USF degree will finally have value and that they'll be able to explain it to an employer. Faculty members have been excited that they feel their courses will now have career relevance, and it'll help them answer students' questions as to why do I need to learn about this in the real world. And colleagues have been excited because they feel like now their programs relate to a student's career and that students see the value of doing their programs as they look at their bigger future. And employers are excited because they feel like it's helping students to connect the dots. And again, it was their sense that students were learning what they needed to and experiencing the things they needed to, but they just weren't putting those things together. So we feel like we're on the right track when we talk to other campuses and other folks who are in the career readiness industry. We're all kind of feeling like we're going in the right direction with this. We don't have the outcome data yet, so hopefully we'll get a chance to get back in front of you with those numbers once we have them. But as we, again, are kind of young in our launch year, so far, so good. We're excited about the results we're getting. So here's some things we're doing as we head forward. Our campus is looking at ways that we can infuse high-impact practices within the Gen Ed curriculum. And so we think this is going to be play a role in that we're going to be able to help faculty align their courses with the career readiness competencies, maybe identifying one of them out of the 8 that best represents the skill sets learned in their course. What we do in our program is very much like an e-portfolio function where we're including a way that students can attach any important artifacts that support what it is they're doing for that competency. And we provide them with some critical reflection space so that they can practice their response to an employer. They don't ever have to show this content to anyone, but it gives them a place where they can work out their story, figure out how all these things come together for them, and it enables us, again, to coach them in the right direction. We're also working with systems like LinkedIn and Handshake to enable employers to be able to search for our students on the basis of these competencies. So we're working out some of those processes so that employers can use this on their end to identify students who've completed, work around a particular competency that is of interest to them. And as mentioned, we're also excited about the possibility of being able to track our students long-term to gain some impact data to find out more about what happens to them on the other side of the employment process. So we look forward to engaging with the audience around any questions people might have. And if you want more information, you can visit our website. We have the executive summary available, detail on the NACE standards, including the definitions, additional faculty resources, and just more general information about our program, as well as contact information.
Lynn, thank you so much for sharing. Now is the time to submit your questions. Can you check on yours? Because it's not showing up on mine. One of the things that really stood out to me in your description is how readily the faculty and your other partners throughout the university just so readily embraced this. And it seems like even they were excited to have help the students connect what they were learning in class with, their future and making that relevance issue. Tell me a little bit more about how you went about, building some of that initial support.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kathy, and I think that is kind of a cornerstone to our ability to expand this successfully on our campus. I think partly this happened because we didn't prescribe to people how to do it. We didn't say, this is the content you must learn, these are the activities you must do. We opened that up to our campus partners and we said, you're doing great things, you're teaching great things, we just want to help students learn how to pull those things together. So it really happened rather organically through conversation and through sitting down and talking about the ideas and fleshing them out a little further and listening to what our faculty were telling us and listening to what our other campus partners in student affairs and student success were telling us. So a lot of listening, a lot of encouraging that shared ownership. And again, we were just all really focused on the same outcome. So I think that helped us to partner together very easily.
That's great. And from start to finish, I know you're not finished yet, and certainly you envision some continuous improvement here. From conception to implementation and rolling it out with your students, about how long did that process take you?
That's another great question. We started this journey somewhat back in 2015. We're in Florida, obviously, and our governor issued a Ready, Set, Work challenge at that time that encouraged campuses to address this need for career readiness. So we started down some pathways that didn't really lead us to the success we were after. Initially, we ran workshops where we controlled the content, and we just couldn't scale that out. We couldn't get to enough students. So while the students received the information well, it was not able to get past a small pilot size group. We then thought, well, let's try an online format, and we used a product that was all online, and it didn't engage our students. Again, I think we were missing the mark when we were telling people how to do this. Once we stopped telling them and we simply provided the framework that then challenged them with a series of questions that helped them to reflect and assess their own skills and to learn how to talk about it, that's where we really started to see greater success. So once we got onto that, that approach, it probably took us the better part of a year to really spend some focused time, meeting on a regular basis, building out piece by piece, and really kind of managing that project forward to the point that we were comfortable launching the Canvas site and managing student work through the system.
Great. So we have several questions here. The first is, what challenges did you encounter getting the program started? And we talked a little bit about this, but how did the faculty and departments react to the change? Because in some cases it required them being a little bit more thoughtful about their own translation.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, we are a public institution, so we had no money. So that was another thing that kind of led us to using the resources we had. I think that was another reason we got some early green lights, because when you're taking opportunities to the people above you and you say, and it's not going to cost you anything, they're a little more receptive than if you're bringing a price tag along with you. With regard to faculty, it's always an interesting conversation whenever you're talking about any of these kinds of high impact educational practices. There's some people who engage right away, who see the value in the teaching outcomes, and they see the student engagement, and they just need more information about how to do it. And then there are other folks who've been doing things perhaps the way they've been doing them, and they need a little bit more convincing. So, we're sort of all about building this program one success at a time. So we've been very intentional about starting the conversation with faculty that we knew would understand the whole point of the thing. And so that's what's kind of, I think, given us some early success is, we've had these conversations with people we knew would be receptive.
Okay.
And we just kind of showed them that they were already doing these things, but this enables them to tie to those NACE standards and create additional workforce value in the content they're teaching for their students.
Well, and I would imagine as you're getting some early success, it makes it that much easier, hopefully, with the next level of engagement, because they can actually see what this looks like.
Yes, I think so.
One of our questioners, one of our audience members asks, what mechanism are you using to track student progress?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I definitely feel the pain of tracking students, because one of my other hats is around internships, which is always a challenge to track. The students who engage in our program enter it through an initial orientation. And right now, it's a face-to-face orientation. In the future, we're working on a way that we can do that online so that students can self-enroll. But right now, to help us manage growth, it's a face-to-face orientation where we walk them through how the program works. We answer any of their questions. We have a nifty little passport tool that helps them to kind of, with pencil and paper, work out how they might start their journey into the program, which they kind of like. So when we physically put them into the Canvas site, they're part of that. It's structured like an online class, so they're part of that class. Initially, they take a pre-assessment, which is delivered through Qualtrics, which is a survey tool, but it's built into the Canvas site, so they don't leave our site to go do that. And that's what we use for the final survey as well. And for the quizzes built into the Canvas site, that's part of that same system. So once we get them in the site, we try to keep them in the site.
Got it. That kind of leads into our next question, which is, can you explain how you will scale from 300 to 47,000 students? So I'm sure the online component is probably a key piece of that.
Yes, it might surprise you to hear that that is the question we get asked most often. We're kind of figuring that one out as we go. I think right now we have a small team of us here in career services that have, help us to bite off one small piece at a time as we manage the program. And our thought is that as we expand it, we may be able to build partnerships to help us continue to manage the student work in the system. We're also kind of thinking about the possibility of grants in our future that would enable us to build in some dedicated workforce for the program. And it's part of our strategic plan as well, but again, not sure where the dollars to help support dedicated resources would come from, but we're trying to be creative as we plan for the future.
Wonderful. One of our questions that came through was, can you provide an example of high impact practices which you referenced in your next steps?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. So there is a list of high impact educational practices that are somewhat cultivated through the AAC&U, and they include things like internship, undergraduate research, service learning, education abroad. ePortfolio has been added as a high impact educational practice. The organization is also looking at things like student employment as a possible high impact practice. They're all activities that would be connected to courses or credit bearing activities. So they're not standalone activities. They're course connected and credit bearing, but they allow the student to be able to engage in some hands-on form and apply what they're learning in the classroom through some other experience.
Mark, one of our audience members, asks, is there a graduation point where a certain level of criteria is met, and how does the student know when she or he is finished?
Oh, that's a great question. Within our Canvas framework, there are 8 modules for the 8 NACE career readiness competencies. Within each module is the learn it, do it, and show it piece. So they're able to track their progress through, for example, the leadership competency module, and they'll know when they've passed their learn it quiz because it's self-graded. They'll know when they've completed or they've been approved for their do it work because we will notify them, and then they'll get notification as well once their show it work has been approved. And once we finalize their approvals within that one module, Canvas, which talks to the Badger system, releases the badge for that competency to the student, so that they get the thing that they've been working for pretty quickly once we've reviewed and approved their work. And just to clarify, we're not doing all of the detailed vetting within each module. We're creating the space for the student to work their own story out. And so the vetting comes when that student takes that story to the employer as a potential employee. That's at the point where, the student's resume is reviewed, any information about transcripts is reviewed, and that's how that is vetted from our system. At this time, we're only working them through those 8 competencies, so once they've finished all components for 8 competencies, they've completed the series.
Great. So Laura is asking, what are the different badges students can achieve? I'm assuming it's related to each of those competencies, but do you mind sharing that?
Sure. Yes, we have a very talented team in our marketing office, and so they designed some nicely branded badges in unique colors for each of the 8 career readiness competencies. And just running through that list, it was within this slideshow, but they are career management, communication, critical thinking, global citizenship, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. And then for our students, we also have for students who complete the entire series of 8, they are given the Career Readiness Series badge that includes all the pretty colors and represents completion of the full series of 8.
Wonderful. So Lisa Church from our Future Ready Collier Local College Access Network shares, this is an excellent framework. We've been trying to help our high school students start to do this, to connect what they learn to what it looks like in the real world settings. We are hearing from students that their greatest fear is choosing their major. They aren't sure how it's connected to what they want. They don't know what it would look like, and they think it's a life-altering decision that they cannot change. How are you using this framework to support students in those what's my major thought process who may not have decided what their major is?
That's such a great question, and we see some of that same concern even in college students, even a couple of years into their degree. Sometimes they're still unsure. What we're hearing from a lot of our employers is that major doesn't matter. So I think what's more important for your young students is to get some understanding about what they like and what they're good at. And we recommend to our students all the time that they do that by doing stuff. And they can do all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have to be get a job. It doesn't have to be do an internship. But anything that they can do that gives them some insight into what they like to do and what they're good at can enable them to begin to build a thesis around what kind of career they might like to have. Okay, and we all know, because most of us out there have been career changers at some point in our lives. I know I was. So it happens as part of an individual's career journey and their continued growth and development. So if they can learn not to be so afraid of that part and not to worry about it, it may take some of the anxiety out of that particular decision. This is a generation that's really well connected. I mean, they've got laptops, they've got smartphones, they've got all kinds of resources. But this is a decision you can't make sitting in your bedroom looking at your screen. You have to get out and do stuff and shadow people and watch how people work and learn about what happens in the world of work and get your hands dirty and talk to people through informational interviews and to explore, you know, what feels right to you in terms of what you like to do. So, you know, whether that's volunteering or whether that's you know, participating in projects at school or activities at church, whatever it might be, if your students can engage in some reflection around those things and to begin to identify for themselves, what did I like, what did I not like, what energized me, what you know, felt like it was an energy drain. Those are kinds of things that might help them to begin to build kind of a framework for themselves about what kind of education they want to pursue for themselves. I think within our framework, we're assuming that they've worked some of that out, but it's quite possible through the reflections they engage in particular as part of the do it component, they may be identifying things about their skills that they didn't realize before. You know, they may be learning about things in terms of finding that they were successful at something they didn't expect to be successful at, or working through challenges they hadn't realized they might be able to master. So hopefully that reflection space gives them the ability to think through some of that as they go.
One of the things that I also like about these competencies is they transcend a degree. Mm-hmm. It's not related to engineering or marketing or business or whatever. You need these skills regardless of what path you choose. And so it's a more universal framework that supports every student, even while they're still trying to figure out what that future mm-hmm. degree may be. And I do think we have a tendency, not we, but our culture tends to look at degrees like you make them and then you can never change them. And as you shared, people change careers all the time. I keep hearing statistics, and it changes depending on the authority you listen to, that this generation will make, you know, potentially 5, you know, career changes. And so these are transferable skills regardless of which degree path you're on.
That's true. And as you mentioned in the beginning when you introduced me, I used to work on the workforce side of all of this, where I was training people who are already employed and talking with people who are already employed about what their career plans were. And frequently, even though they were working for someone already, they were looking at what their next step was going to be, what their next career was going to be, how they could build their workforce skills and take them into another industry or another employer. So yeah, I know it probably feels scary when you're at the beginning of that journey and taking your first steps, and every decision you make feels like it's going to impact your entire life. But if they can, begin to kind of think about the fact that this is part of what keeps an individual's work life vital and interesting and continuing to evolve, then maybe it won't feel quite so scary. And as you said, these competencies are used across industries, so they're very transferable.
Kellyanne asks a great question. How do you handle students who have disengaged from the program? So kids sign up, students sign up, they get started. A, can you see that somebody's kind of gone dark on you? Mm-hmm. And then B, what do you do to try and help get them going again?
That's a really great question. Because our program is really young, we haven't had too much of that time lapse where students would have completely disengaged, but we can see where they are in the system. We can reach out to them. We track them. We've had some of these conversations where we've said, hey, this student has completed Learn It and Do It, but they didn't move on to Show It. Or they completed Learn It and Do It across 4 different competencies, but they're not doing Show It. So we can see where some of their hesitations might be, and that gives us a chance to reach out to that student and say, hey, are you worried about how you might feel about doing the Show It answer? Do you want to come in and conduct some mock interview questions with us? Let us help you with this if this is making you nervous. So we can reach out to them and invite them to come in and see us. It also enables us to send out group messages. So if we see that there are students who took our orientation, we entered them into the Canvas site, but they're not doing anything, we're able to individually or group message them and say, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to start to package some of what you're learning and doing on campus before you graduate. Let us help you. If you've forgotten how, we can again reach out and coach them or offer assistance.
Wonderful. So Paula asked, can you see any application for this system for the K through 12 schools? As you know, many high schoolers are already starting to think about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been contacted by folks from high schools already about how they might apply this idea to what they're doing. And I think that as you look at K through 12, I would simplify what we're doing a little bit. We kept ours pretty simple for a college student, but I think you can simplify it further for K through 12. You might, for younger students, maybe you pick a competency for the month, and maybe you work on it as a classroom activity, and maybe you have activities that help students learn what that competency looks like in action, and maybe they're things that you have them do. Maybe you even have them practice doing something along the lines of a kiddo level interview question to get that experience early on and to see what that looks like. I think you can probably gauge what level of difficulty to structure those pieces around at different educational levels, but I think it's a great idea to get kids thinking about what they're learning about now and how those things help them build these competencies that can help them be successful in the real world.
One of the questions that came through, I hadn't thought of this one, but it's a great question. What if you see a student is actually struggling in a competency area? I don't know if you've encountered that yet, but what's the intervention or how do you help that student then plug into ways to develop?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think we'll start to get a better idea of what that looks like now that we're starting to infuse this into more of the curriculum. When we started this with students, we were starting with student leaders. We were starting with high achievers. We sort of set ourselves up to win. So we didn't really see too many students who were struggling very much. In fact, we had some superstars who went through the entire series and completed all 8 competencies in a very short amount of time. Again, because we started with student leaders and they were superstars. So I think we'll start to see more of these scenarios as we dig deeper. And really that's the whole intent, right? We want to find those students before they're failing in the job market. We want to have the opportunity to reach out to them, if not through their faculty, through our oversight of the system, to be able to say, hey, it looks like you're doing some really interesting things, but I think we can help you learn how to talk about them better when you're engaging with an employer. So we can track them, we can invite them in, or we can even offer to come to classes if students are in a particular, working within a particular course.
Lynn, thank you. There are several more questions, but they're a little more technical in nature, and so I will shoot those to you, and if you wouldn't mind responding to those questions directly. On the screen now, you'll see both Lynn's and my email. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to either one of us. Many thanks to you for sharing your program with us and helping all of us see ways we can help students earn their first job by being more effective in their interviewing and in their resume writing. It's so critical that these students learn how to connect the dots. Many times when faculty members give them teamwork projects, for instance, they have a tendency to think we're just torturing them. They don't realize that they're actually getting the opportunity to build things like learning give and take and influencing and dividing up work and selling their ideas. And so this translation process through your innovative badging program is really a step in the right direction in terms of helping them succeed. A couple of final announcements I want to make before we conclude. Please save the date. We have our 2018 Florida College Access Network Summit coming up in May. Registration is now open. It will be at the Hyatt Regency in Orlando, and you can register at fcansummit.org. We're super excited. We think this is going to be our biggest and best summit yet. We're expecting over 300 college and career readiness professionals from throughout the state to share ideas with each other. We are pleased to welcome keynote speaker Jaime Casap, Google's education evangelist. Love that, would love to know what that entails, who has a unique way to inspire students to envision a compelling future that motivates action. We'll also have 30 breakout sessions on topic tracks that include college access, post-secondary success, college affordability, career readiness and workforce development, data and measurement, and collective impact. Finally, we have a webinar next week that may be of interest. We are partnering with the Helios Education Foundation for this webinar. It's called Scholarship Innovation, How Funders and Communities Are Meeting the Needs of Today's Students. As many of you all on the call know, the needs of our students is changing, and traditional scholarship models are not keeping pace with some of the evolving needs our students have. And so Helios Education Foundation did a white paper surveying all the various models around scholarship and other forms of emergency aid to help us understand what does that framework look like and how can we help each other better serve the needs of students. And if you'd like to hear more, so for that and for the summit, please register at floridacollegeaccess.org/events. And if you'd like to hear about upcoming webinars, legislative updates, events, and policy brief releases, please subscribe at floridacollegeaccess.org. Several of you have asked if we'll share the webinar slides. You should be able to access them in the handout section on the screen now. We will be posting those on our website, and I believe some of you want to share some of these materials with your audience when those links are, when it's on our website. We're happy to have you link to any and all who are interested in these materials. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a great day.